I have wanted to get back into BCS for quite a while now. I did a playthrough of Aracore on this channel a year or two ago. I can't remember how long it's been. And I've been, after watching a bunch of BCS content, I have been itching to play it. And so now that I have some time, I decided to set up Baptism by Fire, which is a game that I have not played in this series, that I have owned for a while. And I chose it for a number of reasons. One, everything I've heard about Baptism by Fire, as we look at the map here, it's a 2-map game, and the setup for the campaign game, which is a 10-turn scenario, is that Baptism by Fire is actually a really good game for solo BCS. It is considered by many, as I have discovered, to not be a very fun game to play head-to-head, simply because the American player doesn't have a lot of real meaningful decision points a lot of the time, in the sense that they're going to be in defense for most of it. They have very few units to start the scenario with, and the Germans have a much better quality. And so they're playing them is not as sort of interesting maybe as in other BCS titles. So for that reason, I'm going to be playing it solo, and it's a good way for me to refresh my knowledge of the BCS rules, while also having the opportunity to learn some things about playing better defense in BCS, which can be very challenging. So if we look here, Baptism by Fire, I'm set it up on the table. We've got 2 maps in the MMP gamer style, so mostly sand colored. This is the Battle of Kasserine Pass, which is here, Kasserine Valley-ish in this general here, the pass being right there. And it is 1943 in North Africa. Specifically, it is, what day is it? It is the 14th of February. So, pretty close to actually when we're starting this playthrough. And I guess that would be almost 82 years since the Battle of Kasserine passed. And what we have is elements of the German Africa Corps coming onto the map from this direction. We've got Americans in place here, and a small formation over here, and this goes off into this direction. So the American side, I keep calling it the Americans, but they do actually have some Algerian French units, some British units as well that are going to come into play. The Germans are also going to be joined by the Italians in this scenario. Now, what makes this campaign interesting and this game interesting is that very few special rules. I think it's like 3 pages of special rules, and they're actually very simple. I am using BCS Rules version 2 from Aracore because I want to play with the most up-to-date stuff. I have got the command cards here for the game set up, the reinforcements ready to go. What's going to happen? The Germans, they are going to start the scenario by coming on from this direction. We've got 2 essentially conf groups that are going to be entering in the F hexes. We've got 2 conf groups down here entering in the G hexes, and they're going to be coming up in this direction. The German player is not going to know what his victory condition is until we get to the 17th, so turn 4. At that point, it's going to be a chit draw that's going to determine whether his victory condition is to escape via the B and C exit points on the north end of the map, or exit on any of the A left side hexes of the map. Some victory point locations will score for both. Some will only score for one of them. So I believe Tabessa is the one that goes this direction, and I believe that Lekef is the one that goes off the north. The German player wins if he can exit all of his armored movement units, TAC movement units, off the edge of the map on the victory condition that he draws. In a face-to-face game, the American player won't know what victory condition the German player has drawn, and so is going to be forced to defend kind of both exits, pending what they see the German player doing. Is the German player going to feint one way and then go the other way? In general, the choke points for going to the west here is a lot stronger than the defensive positions going in this direction. And I'm trying to figure out a way to double blind this for myself, because obviously once I know what the victory condition is for the Germans, then I will know as the American player which one I have to defend more. So I'm thinking what I might do is I might take the victory condition chit and not look at it when I take it, and then do the best I can with the Germans to achieve victory in some fashion, or possibly I'll make a roll and see if I get to look at it. What I could do is I pick it here. Maybe I give myself till the 21st, and then I actually look at it on the 21st, and that way I only have 3 turns left to decide where I'm going. I don't know. I'll figure something out here to kind of double blind it for myself. If the Germans don't achieve either of those victory conditions, then they will win by points, and points are going to be scored by the victory hexes all around the map. The ones that say either, such as Board Shambi here, are going to count no matter what shit they've drawn, and if the Germans can get 9 victory points, they will win the game. I believe that is going to mean that they have to kind of know, because some of these are only score if they have a specific victory chit. So I might look online, see what people have done about double blinding this for themselves. Either way, I'm going to have some fun with it. I am going to be using the chit pull, where you draw 3 chits and pick one of the available ones from the side that has the majority. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm playing solo, and I know that so much of BCS is sequencing your formations in the correct order, but I do think that the uncertainty of the initiative of that chit draw is actually interesting, especially when I'm playing solo. I don't want there to be perfect knowledge of how I'm activating things. I'm not interested in playing chess against myself. I'm interested in having a kind of interesting narrative experience. And again, I'm playing solo, so this is not a big, like, high stakes game. I'm not playing face to face. I'm not in a tournament or anything like that. So let's talk about the initial disposition of American forces. Up here, we have got Combat Command C of the 1st Infantry Division. They are, or is it the 1st Armored Division? Might be the 1st Armored Division. Yeah. Anyways, we've got Combat Command C. I am playing with the extra units that came in Baptism by Fire. These start here. This is a pretty weak formation. In general, the Americans have pretty weak units, and they are all sorts of turned around. They've got their combat trains kind of in the direction of the German advance, while the rest of their formation is up here around this victory point hex. We are going to want to get them somewhere to be useful as we start the game. We've got Combat Command A down here. There's some special rules for these 2 units and this unit here, which is they do not suffer isolation effects if they do not move from their starting hexes. Once they do, they will. And as you'll notice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this unit here is beyond the command range of this HQ, which is probably going to have to pull back pretty shortly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This guy's in command. This guy's not in command. Sorry, the 3 units are this one, Task Force Waters, Task Force Drake, and the 3rd of 168th Battalion. So it's these 3 here. This guy is not considered there. So if these guys move, they suddenly are going to suffer isolation. If they don't, they can stay there, and that's going to force the Germans to have to essentially clear them, depending on which way they approach. Now, my strategy for the Germans is this Gerhardt Kampf group here is to lead this attack. As you can see from the supply sources here, we've only got one sort of major road. I guess this would be a secondary road or something. It would be, a secondary road. That is not going to incur penalties for the snafu roll, which means that we're going to want to get the Germans advancing on this direction, try and clear this armory unit out of this village, and then set up our advance going further this way. If you look at the map, based on the roads and stuff, we're going to be pretty confined if we don't want bad snafu die roll modifiers to these roads here. There's probably not going to be a reason that I want to come off the map this direction, because my victory conditions are that way and that way. So we will have to, this hex here is, like, I guess, really critical given how many road loci are there. But we're going to want to defend it against CCC because if we don't, we can be taken in the rear. We will probably want to clear some of these, because if we leave them there and they don't move, and then they start moving, there's an opportunity that they may be able to cut our line of communication. So, yeah. And then Gerhardt, they've got 3 turns before they're removed from the map, and then we'll be off the map for a couple turns, and then they'll come back after refitting. So we definitely want them to be the tip of the spear, soak up as many losses and combat situations as we can as we push forward, followed closely then by Rhine. In the south, we've got 2 more German conf groups coming up this way. There's an American unit screening right here. This is the 81st Battalion of CCA. He is also out of command. The Americans just set up in a woefully disorganized mess in this game. So these conf groups are going to come this way. The problem here is that the supply source here is along a track, I believe, which is going to be negative snafu modifiers for their activations. So I would expect that these guys are not going to activate nearly as efficiently as these guys here. So what we're going to want to do is push from this direction hard, follow up in this direction if we can. We're going to have to get rid of especially this guy, because his Zoc is along this track that we're probably going to need to use for supply trace. Alternatively, we can come this direction and make it out here to this road, which may be a better move because we've got a supply source there. We just have to make sure that the other American formation way over here to the west at Thelepte, which is Task Force Stark, don't get any ideas and come this direction. Now, Task Force Stark starts the scenario done. They don't have a lot of units, but they will get some minefields to place later on in the scenario. So And they are kind of like the one force that is blocking exit off of here. So depending on what the German objective is, they are going to be very important for preventing a westward exit, at least in this part of the map. You can see that that's probably the path of least resistance for the Germans, assuming they can pass their activations. But in general, we're going to want to stick to these secondary roads as much as possible to keep our activation tempo high. So that is a look at Baptism by Fire. This is the second BCS game in the series, and one that I am looking forward to soloing here. So let's get started with turn one. The Germans have the first activation, and we're going to begin with Kampf Group Gerhardt to take on CCA. Already, we've got some interesting stuff going on here. The Germans, with the first activation, brought Gerhardt out, eliminated two American units, armor units, in the first go-round. This Panzer Battalion from Gerhardt doing lots of work. In fact, driving off a bunch of CCA's defenders as well, leaving only this HQ in this town. Couldn't proceed any further. We then had Stenkov come up this direction, got two activations, had to move the trains, which will hurt him next turn, but he did manage to get moving up towards Sidi Bouzid, and has a recon unit out here just screening the way for approaching Kern's Crossroads. I have just drawn the CCA armored shit, and that is this unit here. They're going to have problems. So their trains are here, and I do not believe those trains can trace to this HQ with this unit there, because coming down this way, we hit a Zoc here. Coming down this way, obviously, it's blocked by this unit. This unit is really just cut the rest of CCA off. So I believe the combat trains come off the map, and that's going to be a very punitive activation role for CCA, who is trying to withdraw. CCC, Combat Command C, who is located up in this area, has pulled all the way back down this direction towards Spaitla. I believe that's how you pronounce that. Even though they're giving up defending this victory point hex, if the Germans want to go all the way up there on those tracks, that they're welcome to it, I guess. The U.S. is going to get reinforcements, but they're not going to get them in this direction. I don't know. Maybe that was a bad strategic play to do that, but the U.S. is going to get reinforcements from up there, so they can come down into this area if they need to. I just don't foresee the Germans, not knowing what their victory condition is, going up in this direction. And I felt like it was more important to gain control of the center of the map, chess strategy, than to sit way out here on the flanks doing nothing. Okay, we reached the end of turn one. That was pretty quick, not very many formations. As you can see with the Germans, I'm trying not to coordinate the formations, and I'm trying to bring them all on different roads to avoid the traffic jam. It's going to be unavoidable here with Kampfgruppe Gerhardt and Kampfgruppe Rheim, who are going to be crossing the streams. No, which ones are crossing the streams? Actually, none of them are crossing the streams yet. But the order of activations here is going to actually be very important, because if Schutt or Sternkopf go first, we're not going to want to coordinate, so we're going to have to come down in this direction. It's going to be slow going to try and get everything in a way that gets me moving this way, and not taking up the road space. So we're going to try that. We're also trying to eliminate these American positions here, so we don't have to worry about our rear. We've done a pretty good job on this one. He's only got a couple steps left. These guys in the mountains here are a huge pain in the ass. The artillery barrages are more difficult, and we're not rolling great for air points. Only two for the Germans, one for the Americans. And we didn't get any replacements this turn. I got rolled snake eyes on the replacements table, so but we're going to continue trying. I think, yeah, the order of activations here is going to determine what formation goes up this road versus what formation goes along these tracks. I'm trying to avoid tracks as much as possible, but it's not going to be quite that simple given where we are. Americans pulling back to more defensible terrain. I can see why people say this is I'm probably going to say this a lot, why it's better as a solo game. Americans have done nothing except run away or get hammered so far in turn one. And hopefully that'll change. We do have a lot of American reinforcements coming on the next turn. 2 formations for the Americans, plus the long Kampf group for the Germans. And we got some, this should be a quick turn as well, I feel like, given the number of formations here. Of note, Task Force Stark will be able to activate this turn. I don't know how much they want to do. I got to look at the schedule of arrivals, because when the Germans start coming on here, we're going to want to probably be in prepared defense for them. And I got to start thinking about prepared defense up here as well. End of turn 2, February 15th, 1943. The Germans pushing in this direction to force the Americans away. Still having huge difficulties with these American units as part of Combat Command A who are in these mountains. This guy's got a step left. That guy has 2 steps left. Trying really hard to eject them so I don't have to worry about my line of communication. It's just challenging because of the terrain, and I've missed a bunch of artillery rolls and airstrikes. I was hoping to have them wiped out by now. This turn and the next turn are going to be difficult for the Germans to activate thanks to the -2 snafu modifier. We got a couple of partial activations in here. I did get lucky on my second activations, but I did lose fresh status on Rhyme, I believe, and we've pushed Gerhardt up to fatigue 1, which is not ideal. I'm also having to move my combat trains to get them on this road so that they're not crossing the streams. Yeah, it's just kind of a mess to untangle here as the Germans drive forward. Thankfully, we are going, I think, to be able to cut this guy out of safe path this next turn as part of CCA. He was not able to get out of there, and the Germans have kind of rushed up and surrounded him. So he's going to take some attrition losses, I think. And just the Americans trying to find some locations to set up. These guys, Task Force Stark over here, are going to get into a prepared defense, I think, try and hold this town for a little bit. I think we're going to have some reinforcements coming in from H. So it should widen the battlefield a little bit moving forward. And so this is what you see going on. Not a lot of units to start this game, and I'm already 20% through the campaign scenario. So very playable, I would say. End of turn 3. And it's mostly been an exercise in trying to maneuver down the roads. There's just not a lot of options for moving. And part of the reason why I haven't been showing you the activations is because many of them aren't featuring a lot of combat or action. It's mostly been an exercise in logistics planning, which is great. I find that actually really compelling. It's a nice puzzle, but there's not a ton happening. We did finally manage with a bunch of aerial bombardments to take out a bunch of the... take out the 2 infantry that were stationary in these hills, protecting our line of communication, so we're good there. A lot of slow movement by the Germans coming up this direction, having to use these tracks, having to reposition their combat trains so that they can stay in supply without crossing the streams. I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible, even though I know that making them go to ghost mode, like here, for example, is the same as having them at non-optimal distance or using tracks. But I'm trying to set it up for success once I reach Speitla, where the U.S. Combat Command C has entered prepared defense. We do have the leading edge of Gerhardt's panzers did manage to make it to the outskirts of the village. We actually eliminated a unit here with an engagement, but this upcoming turn, Gerhardt is actually, that whole conf group is actually going to leave the map. So I was trying to get them as far as possible to do as much damage as possible. We did manage to retreat this U.S. unit under the screen marker several times, thanks to this mechanized infantry, just kind of walking in there, forcing him back. He's only got 1 step left, which is nice. We had Long. So the way that the activation order turned out is I didn't quite get to do what I wanted. I wanted Gerhardt to push up even further and Long to come in behind them up this highway, or this road, I should say, not highway, secondary road. Unfortunately, they just didn't make as much progress as I wanted, so I had to change tack with Long. So we had them come up this highway and then turn north along this track, and then I relocated their trains to this road here, which has a German supply source there. So I was able to move the logistical tail to a different approach, and that actually forced CCB, First Armor, to reroute. So they were reinforcements that came on here. They were going to come down here and try and support around Speitla, but now they see that this threat of Long could potentially push north here, and then they would be behind the American position. So the Americans have to protect this area, which is a pretty good defensive area with all of this rough terrain in here. Maybe make them go around the long way. But it does mean that they are protecting against the possible victory condition of exiting off the map to the north. And I think, obviously, by design, I think for the game, that is kind of necessary. CCB, this formation, is actually not too bad. I mean, their ratings aren't great, but they do have some pretty good armor here. So we'll see what we can do with that. CCA continues to have real struggles. They were soft jumped all the way back here. So this guy's going to have to get moving when CCA goes if he's not eliminated outright. If that happens, I think, depending on how replacements go, CCA might be removed from the game. We're trying to prevent that from happening if at all possible, but most of CCA's units have been destroyed. Over here, Welvert, the French Algerians have come down. This is kind of a nightmare as well. I had the option of starting Welvert down here, which would have kind of made no sense because their supply line would have been coming back to here, and then they would have been like reusing the same road for their logistics tail. So we just had them come in at Buchebka. Coming down here, what I'm trying to do is get them across without coordinating. Yeah, it's going to be difficult. I'm trying to get them across here and back up this road to provide some potential defense or potentially guard here. I mean, this would be a tough one for the Germans to get through. So I'm just trying to kind of make a second layer of defense across this gap in the roads here. Let Stark, who are in prepared defense now, they're going to be able to lay minefields on this upcoming turn. Let them take the primary defensive role, and then Welvert will support kind of in this area. For the German advance that is sure to come, as Rommel and the Afrika Korps come onto the map over there. But otherwise, it's just been a lot of moving up. We've kept Sternkopf fresh, and we've kept Schutt fresh as well. So I'm actually thinking as Gerhardt leaves the map this turn, having Schutt come up this road here, and then we have the possibility of 3 possible angles of attack on Speitla, or we can bring Long north to challenge CCB. The Germans really in control of the pacing and the area of attack. The Americans have to kind of guess where they're going. So, but the good part is for the Americans, they're going to get a ton of reinforcements this turn. They're going to get the British 1st Guards Brigade. They're going to get the 34th Infantry Division. They're going to get the minefield, some other reinforcements in there. And the Germans are going to get the Afrika Korps Kampf Group coming in this turn. So it's going to change the complexion of the battle a little bit, and hopefully there'll be a little bit more action to show you. But through the first 3 turns, it's been mostly maneuver and logistical repositioning. Some engagements here and there, obviously taking out these weak forward U.S. positions. What's interesting about this scenario, or this game really, is that the Americans can't have support. So you're missing a huge part of the BCS system with your entire faction not being able to go and have support, unlike the Germans here. We put some 88s in support here. We put some light tanks in support here and here as well. The Americans don't have that, and so their infantry is extremely vulnerable to attacks by fire and overruns. Attack by fire and what's it called? Shock attacks. Because they can't put armor in support. And so another reason why this game is really not great head-to-head is because you're missing a lot of the BCS toolbox with the American side, with no support, really not great units. And so, all of the fun is had by the Germans. But it is the Battle of Kasserine Pass, so you would kind of expect that. Anyways, I'm having a ton of fun. We're going to get back to it. Turn 4 coming up. Quick look how on turn 4, Task Force Stark deployed their minefields, protecting all approaches to the north, and a 1 here in advance. In order to clear those, the Afrika Korps is going to have to send an infantry unit in deployed mode to move into that hex to breach it. So it's going to really slow down the DAC advance. Maybe let these tank destroyers do some counterattacking, but there's no armor in here other than what's with Welvert. And because, I want to bring down, I don't want to mix because they're going to get coordinated, but I want to get Welvert in a position or possibly bring forward some of Stark's infantry to attack the lead formation of the Afrika Korps. Unfortunately, Stark doesn't have really good units to do that with. So these tank destroyers, we're relying on them to do some attacks by fire against the infantry when they move in there. Clicking along very rapidly. Finished turn 4 here in BCS Baptism by Fire. So let's take a look at the state of the map. We have had a lot of action in and around Speitla. I think that's how you pronounce that. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. We've got these two conf groups here, both of whom have very low fatigue, both of whom have pretty good support units, and both of whom have really good armor. That's the story of this game. Great German armor. We've managed to push back elements of CCC and CCA of the 1st Armored Division, trying to make our way into this hex here. It's going to be somewhat difficult, but not impossible, because this mechanized infantry unit there is pretty terrible. So we just need to, probably this next turn, assuming we can roll good activations, and we should be able to, because the German activation penalty is going to end, we should be able to get some infantry units in there for an assault. We want to continue driving the armor back as much as possible. The Allies have not had good air rolls this game. have had half or less the amount of air that the Germans have had. So it's been a real frustrating way to try and build a defense for the Americans. And I'm also not very good at it. So if it looks like I'm getting my ass handed to me, it's because I am. And I don't know how we're going to counterattack. At least maybe I think if I can get the British First Guards into some sort of support role, I might be able to counterattack. Conf Group Long down here managed to take the long way up, going straight north along these tracks, managed to make an attack on Kef El Amar. Unfortunately, we tried to do an engagement here with this, what is this, the 10th Crod recon unit, pretty good recon unit. Tried to do an engagement against that tank destroyer and failed, and so we were stopped, and then we made an attack on the village and succeeded and drove out the Allied mechanized infantry there, but we couldn't advance because I don't think we could have advanced because we were stopped, but I'd have to look in the rules about that. If so, Germans are going to be on the board by seizing that hex. If not, it's vacant, and we're going to have to hope we win initiative. The rest of the formation is following up from the south. So Germans enjoying a pretty good advance in the eastern half of the map, and it gets even better when we go over here to the Africa Corps. We have got the DAC formation. They breached the first minefield. They have put Task Force Stark in a very poor position, getting surrounding the town of Thelepte. There we go. These Task Force Stark engineers are just like terrible with 1 action rating. And the German armor in the Africa Corps is quite good, as you would imagine. We have some more minefields we're going to have to defeat. But the road is open if we can push them to the side. It was really unfortunate because Task Force Welvert, the French, Free French here, they actually got the first activation of the turn, and so they were not able to respond to what was going on down here. We don't really even have the ability to make counterattacks, and we do have to be very careful that we protect this road and this victory point hex here, because one of the exit hexes for the Germans is going to be along this road here. So we have to make sure that we aren't extending ourselves too far. We may pull back to this mountainous terrain. That might be an easier way to defend along that road there. But it's not looking good over here. And of course, if we break through, we've got this road all the way up here and all the way up here, and there's no one protecting that stuff. I am likely going to try and pull CCC back this way if I can. I realize as the Allies I've made a bit of a mistake, and that is the 1st Armored Division should all be operating together. So because they're buddies, they don't have to worry about intermixing the formation. So if I'd been thinking properly, I would have brought CCB down this way to come support, and I would have had the British hold this flank. I still may try and do that. I've just been rolling very poorly for the Allied activation rolls. So we are heading into turn 5, almost halfway done with the game. We're going to have to figure out what we do with the German victory conditions, because I still don't know where I'm trying to advance to yet. And I need to double blind it for myself. All right, here we are. Africa Corps is activating after some minor repositioning from Task Force Welvert. Unfortunately, Task Force Stark is in a really bad position here. So I'm going to show you this activation from DAC and give you a sense of kind of how I'm pursuing this campaign. So let's roll for activation. We are activating Der Afrika Corps. So they are optimal distance from their trains +1. They are not ghosted. They are fatigue 0. So, and there's no modifiers for the turn. So I believe that they are going to get a +1 on their snafu roll. And let's roll that up. They rolled a 6, +1 is a 7. That is a full activation. They get 2 objective markers. So that's pretty good. So what we want to do basically is we want to put the objective markers on the village hex, because it's a VP hex, and in order to enter that hex we are going to need 2 objective markers. So I'm just going to set these right here to show you that we've got a double objective zone, and that's going to cover all the units in Task Force Stark, except for, yeah, all the units including the HQ. So let's see what we can do here. So first thing I want to do is I probably want to make some attacks by fire with this Panzer unit here, which is threatening. We've got these engineers with 2 steps. So let's go ahead and use both fire events from the Panzer to do an attack by fire. This is essentially an artillery bombardment hitting on, because they're in the open, they're going to be hitting on 4s or higher. So here we go. And we got 1 hit there. So that is going to finish this Panzer unit. And that is going to mean that these engineers only have 1 hit left. That's not ideal in the sense that, we wanted to kind of finish them off. We've got another option here to do an attack with this dual unit, this recon unit. It's at half strength, which is not great, but I think this engineer unit is 2 steps. So we have to roll pretty high to eliminate that unit, but I'm just trying to see if there's a better place to put this unit. I could move it up here to then start attacking Task Force Welver. There's actually nothing coming up this road until you get to CCA, who's in the process of kind of pulling back. So there's a 12 hex range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we have to get rid of this unit blocking this road at some point. So we're going to go ahead and make an attack with the DAC Recon unit. It is a dual unit, and it is in a double objective zone, so that'll be nice. So we look at the efficiency rating difference between the two. We got a 5 here and a 1 there. That starts us at +4. We are a dual unit, that's +5. Double objective zone, +6. We are going to use an air point for bombardment. That is +8. And then this task force that we are attacking is in prepared defense, so we're back down to +7, and we're infantry in the open. So +7, this should go okay for us. We rolled a 6 plus a 7 is a 13. That is going to be 2D result, 2 step losses, and that will be enough to eliminate these engineers. Goodbye. And that's exactly what we wanted. Now that finishes both of these vehicle units, but it does open the road here if we can make an attack on the 126th infantry here. So he's at half strength. He's got 3 step losses left. I think we're going to go ahead and do that, and we're going to make the lead attacking unit this one here. So he's attacking across a wadi there, which has no effect on combat. So yeah, the 2nd Africa Corps Battalion is going to lead the attack. We look at the difference. It's a 4 to a 3. We're at +1. Dual objective zone +2. We're going to do another air barrage. Actually, we can use the intrinsic artillery from the headquarters, who has 3. So yeah, so what did I say? We are +1, +2 for double objective zone, +3, 4 for the suppression mission, +5 for the assist. But then we have got back down to +4 for prepared defense from Task Force Stark, and then back down to +3 because the infantry unit is in a village, which is terrain. So we're at a +3 on the attack. Let's roll it. Whoa, that's not a good roll. That's bad. So that gets us a 7. That's an A1 desituational. So 1 step loss to each unit. And I will go ahead and do that. And then we'll come back to see how we're going to get the rest of DAC, who's off the map this way, what they're going to do. All right, well, we've moved up the 2 Italian battalions that are attached to the Africa Corps here. And I have a decision to make. I think what I can do... this unit is really just annoying. Maybe I can get lucky with I can't barrage it again because I've already attacked it with a suppression. So I have to do 2 attacks by fire with these Italian units. Hopefully I can get lucky and do 2 step losses. I need to hit on a 5 or 6, so we're going to finish that unit's activation and hopefully roll 2 step losses. I rolled no hits on that attack by fire. So this single infantry unit from Task Force Stark is really holding up the entire advance here. And that's unfortunate because the Task Force Stark is in a bad way. They're going to gut it out for another turn along here. Unfortunately, they don't have a main supply route. Their trains are off map. So that's going to severely hamper their activation. But essentially, I could do a retreat out of here and take some step losses, but I don't want to do that while the trains are off map. So I'm just going to basically sacrifice that infantry unit to try and hold them up and then see if we can get these engineers. I think these engineers will be able to, if Stark can get an activation, they'll be able to retreat out of here and leave those guys potentially. But then they'll be isolated. I don't know. It's a really bad situation for Task Force Stark. But let's roll to see if we get a second activation for... first, we got to roll fatigue, actually, for Africa Corps. 1 through 3, because they didn't attack. Nope, no fatigue. They rolled a 6. So let's see if we get a second activation with them. They need a 4 or higher. This might be... And they got it. They got a 5. So DAC is going to get to go again. And this might be the way that they clear the road. And I think what I'm going to do... Well, first, let's roll Snafu. So they are optimal distance, +1, fatigue 0. So +1 on the Snafu roll. They rolled a 7. That's going to be an 8. That's another full activation. So what I would like to do, there's only 2 steps left here. If I just do an artillery barrage against them, I can maybe get enough steps. So that will preclude me, I think, from being able to do support a suppression barrage if I need to attack the hex again. But I'm actually okay with that. I think if I just don't roll crappy, we'll be able to do that. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is, I gotta check to see if I spot for an artillery barrage. No, I can, yeah. Okay, so I can attack after I spot. So we're going to go ahead and have this unit here, the one who made the attack, do spot, and we're going to throw down all 3 points of the conf group's artillery on that hex. I will need a 4 or higher on. So let's roll the first 2. That's 1 hit, and then we're going to roll the second one. Come on, just want to get him out of there. And we got it. Okay, so 2 hits on that destruction barrage. This guy is dead. That's unfortunate for the Americans. Maybe we'll get some replacements at some point to bring him back. Oh, I should have put the objective markers. I apologize. That should have been the next thing after the snafu roll. Obviously, we're doing the same thing. I'm putting the 2 objective markers in the town. I'm just going to put those there. So now we can move in there. This guy cannot because he's done, but we can move some of this infantry up if we would like to. And I think I'm going to have to figure out how I want to advance the rest of the formation up this road. We need to get going. We need to clear these minefields. It's probably worth clearing this minefield right now, just in case we need to go up this road to try and escape the map. So yeah, I'm going to do all that, and I'll show you where we end up. Really great second activation for DAC. They managed to eliminate all of Task Force Stark's units. Now, normally that would destroy the formation, but Stark is going to get some reinforcements later in the scenario, so they are going to keep their HQ on the map. The HQ was jumped by this Panzer, but it was a soft jump, it turned out. We had this recon unit put a 3rd objective here on Task Force Welvert's infantry, and we made some attacks by fire, doing 2 more step losses there. And the Germans just keep rolling. They've got nothing up this way. The decision I'm going to have to make next turn is whether or not I want to try and push these guys back and continue to cause damage, or if I feel like I don't have enough time to do that and I need to run out this direction towards this end of the map, because there really is nothing up here right now. And DAC has a lot of fast movers, a lot of armor units, a lot of truck movement. They can get up this road pretty quickly, cut off CCA, actually, as it would turn out. And fighting through this terrain, if we manage to push Welvert back, is going to be pretty gnarly. So, yeah, I mean, a good second activation. We also didn't increase our fatigue on the fatigue die rolls, which is great. And then Rommel comes in next turn, which will give them even more power if I assign Rommel to this formation. So we're just going to keep it going over here. Germans enjoying a lot of success. Halfway through the game, and the Germans continue to just pound the Americans, absolutely decimating their armor here. We can see all of the U.S. casualties that have been piling up over the last couple of turns. We are going to get another British brigade coming in this turn. I'm going to have to look and see where they come in. So here's what's been going on. So first of all, Task Force, or Conf Group Long, has kind of reached the end of where they can supply this group, but they did manage to take Kef LMR, and they've pushed forward and done some losses to the British First Guards. The reason that was allowed to happen is because CCB was in the process of extricating itself. They sacrificed a recon unit to get a bunch of their units down towards Sidi Abdallah. And what they're trying to do is get down this highway and form up with the rest of First Armored, who has withdrawn after taking some pretty heavy losses around Speitla. They're trying to get down this way and hold Kasserine Pass. Because they don't coordinate when they're mixed in, I can have a much stronger defense over here, but I worry that I've taken way too long to do that by deploying CCB over here in the first place and then bringing them back down. I should have just dropped them down here and then had the British First Guards come in and hold here. So that's what we're trying to do. Speitla was taken this turn with lots of losses, lots of armor losses for the Americans. The aggressive Stenkov and Schutt here, these two conf groups, managed to push in through and capture this crossroads, do some more losses as CCA is trying to withdraw. We really got to win the initiative next turn to get these guys to safety and get better defensive terrain over here. And these Tigers, these Tiger Panzers absolutely crushed the U.S.'s best armor unit, and so that's going to be problematic going forward. I think once I can get into prepared defense over here in this terrain, it'll be a little bit harder for the Germans. And then, of course, we have 34th Infantry pouring down. They've taken up a prepared defense around Sidi Abdallah. So they're going to try and hold this approach to the north. But again, it's all going to depend on the victory point shit. And that's coming up this turn. I'm going to draw it at the beginning of the turn, and I got to figure out what I'm going to do about not spoiling the game for myself in terms of victory conditions. DAC, as you saw, doing a good job over here. They've inflicted some losses to Task Force Welvert. Welvert is probably going to have to pull back and protect here, just because it is such a low-hanging fruit for the Germans if they do manage to get the exit off of side A. So Kasserine Pass, the battle, the sort of opening to the battle through the first half of the game around these villages, very much in favor of the Germans, but I think it's going to get a little bit tougher for the Germans as we get into these narrowed valleys in this rough terrain and whatnot. Hopefully, we'll see. I don't think I'm doing a very good job as defending as the Americans, but I have put a significant amount of step losses onto a bunch of the German armored units, so hopefully that will pay off as we get closer to the towards the end of the game. Yeah, so that's your look. We're going to start the second half of this campaign, this game, with turn 6.